Hi, everyone. Welcome to Take Part. This is the podcast where we talk about joining in and reaching out to better your life, experience deeper connection, and achieve your goals. I'm your host, Emily. Before we dive in, I just want to remind everybody that this is a new podcast, so anything that you can do to support is really, really helpful. Please subscribe on YouTube, follow along on your favorite podcast platform, or if you want these episodes emailed to you directly, you can join at takepart.substack.com. And if you want to reach out with questions or feedback on the episode, or you want to give me ideas for future episodes, you can email me as well at takepart@tuta.com. That's TUTA.com. All right. I am so excited to dig in with Terri Eccles today. Hi, Terri.
Really?
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Terri.
Oh, a little bit about me. I like that I get to tell a little bit about me and I don't have to focus on what I do for work. Because it's not a work podcast. I love that. I feel like normally my intros are work associated. Terri Eccles. I live in Seattle. I'm an open water and cold water swimmer, which is what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm an organizational consultant and coach, so a little bit about my work, and I'm a mom and a wife, and yeah, I don't know. That good? Anything else you wanted to?
Yeah. No, that's perfect. And we've known each other for a few years, kind of originally through work and then became friends,
Totally.
as you do with lovely people. So we are talking about open water swimming, which I think is like relatively straightforward in kind of how it sounds, but tell us like what exactly open water swimming is and how you got into it.
I'm not sure I know the formal definition of open water swimming. We're not in a pool, which my swim community calls water prisons. Like you're not in a water prison. The water is free and free moving. So I imagine there's a formal definition somewhere, but for me, I swim in Puget Sound, in Lake Washington. Actually, just recently swam in the Columbia River. So water that is free and free moving and can be varying degrees for myself, anywhere from 42 degrees Fahrenheit to 77 degrees Fahrenheit. Although I guess I could include the Caribbean, but I don't get the ability to go to the Caribbean very often, so I won't include that in my definition. So how did I get into this? I was a swimmer in school. I was a high school swimmer. I did club, I did varsity, but really after I went to college, I didn't swim in college. I wasn't good enough for that. I just really didn't swim that much. I'd be lucky if I got into a water prison once or twice a year. And as I said, every now and then I'd be like, oh, I want to swim, but the warm water of a pool would kind of make me feel nauseous. And I just didn't enjoy pounding out laps. So it just wasn't one of my core exercises. And I mean, I've always been deeply connected to water and love to be by water. And really, what got me started was during the pandemic. It was the first year of the pandemic. Like most people, I was sad and lonely and probably depressed. And it was my birthday. It was January. It was wet and cold and rainy. And I said to my kid and my husband, it's my birthday. I want to go to Golden Gardens. We could go outside. So Golden Gardens is this beach in North Seattle. And we went there and like they didn't know this, but like when we went, I put my swimsuit underneath because I was just like, I just want to be in the water. I just felt very trapped in my home. And so we went to the beach and I got in the water in January and I was like, that was awesome. And so I started doing that more. We would go to Golden Gardens, I would get in the water. I did find a group on Facebook who was like doing cold water plunges in Lake Washington. I can't remember the exact timing, like how often I went with them. I went with them a couple times. But then one morning we were at Golden Gardens on a Sunday morning and there was this group swimming. And there was probably like 15 of them. And I was like, I'm going to go ask them if I can swim with them. And I went up to folks and I was like, hey, do you let people join? And they were like, yeah, come talk to these people. And I was introduced to two women who are just like amazing. They were kind of the starters of the group. They were a group who had swum together in a pool and then had started swimming outside during the pandemic. And I got connected with them. I started swimming every Sunday at Golden Gardens. And then I started doing Wednesdays as well at Garden Gardens. And long story short, there's more to the story, but yeah, at some points in the year, I'm swimming every single day in either the lake or the sound. I think my longest streak is 20 days. There are definitely
Wow.
times I'm way, 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 way below that, but there's, almost an opportunity for me to swim every day. I do a lot more in the lake these days than I do the sound.
Yeah.
Both are very special to me.
Wow. Amazing. It sounds like you knew you loved it immediately. Like you had the background with swimming. You went to Golden Gardens that one time and you were like, this is exactly what I needed. Or did it take some time to kind of get used to? I mean, the cold temperatures and stuff, I imagine there's some getting used to and some kind of motivating yourself to keep going and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know if I was like, "Oh, this is my thing," right away. There were definitely some things that were very hard. It was during the pandemic, so there wasn't a lot of opportunity to be with people. So, it wasn't like we had events to go to. So there were barriers that might usually be there that weren't there. It was like, "Well, what else are you gonna go do on Sunday?" Right?
Right.
Um, I will say the cold, I started probably swimming more seriously in like March or April is very cold. It does take a lot of time to get used to. You're wearing a wetsuit at that time. I don't wear a wetsuit anymore, but at that time I used to wear a wetsuit and the gear is a lot, like figuring out the gear. And then when I moved to the lake, that definitely had some barriers. The lake, depending on the time of year, has really intense what's called milfoil. It's like the seaweed of the lake, and it's
Mm.
really gross. It's like thick and kind of comes up and touches you. And so when I first started swimming in the lake, like I would have panic attacks when swimming through the
Ooh.
milfoil. And it was really intense, and I was very lucky that the group I was swimming with, they were super supportive and, no someone would always stay with me, but it wasn't like, "Oh, I just got into this," and I was like, "This is amazing." Like, no, I to get through and make swimming in the lake a regular basis took a lot of work, like breathing through the panic of that disgusting milfoil.
Yeah, wow. I've always known that word, but I've never known what that actually means. So that's
It's
pretty gross.
gnarly. It's like fingers coming out of the dead, right?
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
crazy.
Still don't love.
Um, yeah, right. So what does keep you going then? So it sounds like, yeah, there's some challenge with it. I guess, and I'm curious about this from just the act of going and doing it, because it sounds like you do it on your own and sometimes, right? And then you do it with this group as well. So the act of doing it, what keeps you going and keeps you motivated. And then also if you could speak to kind of the community that you've built a little bit and what element does that contribute?
Yeah, so the group at Golden Gardens grew very large. When I joined it, it was about 20 people, and the signal is now like over 300. And that
Wow.
people who there are groups of people who swim for a long time and pretty extensive distance. There are people in the group who just bob in the water, right? Just what we call tog bob, which is like get into the cold and, mom swim around, right? And so very varying degrees. The Lake Group was a group of women who kind of were some of the original founders of that group who started swimming in the lake during the week in the morning, so 5:45. And that group has become really, really close. And the group has changed and formed, but there's 13 of us now that are pretty like solid and yeah, it's like it's a huge part of my community and my relationships. And so there are people swimming from this group of 13 almost every morning at 5:45, and it's early and it's really different year round. So in the summer, it's light and it's gorgeous and you're seeing the sunrise come up and it's beautiful and it's warm and those mornings are fun and we we have these buoys. You use like open water swimming buoys, and we always start our swim with like talking. You're like on hanging onto your buoy, like kicking out. And we call that pillow talk, because you're kind of like lying on a pillow. And that is just so meaningful. And then in the winter, it's really cold and it's 5:45 and it's dark and you have lights in your buoys and it might be raining and it might be windy. And there are some mornings, like given the cold, that you can really only be in the water for 10 minutes. There's two of us who don't wear wetsuits, and so our bodies can't be in the water for more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then there's a Saturday group as well, which is there's like so many, like how these groups form. There's a Saturday group, which is some of the women in the weekday group, and then some additions from the Sunday group. And
Hmm.
it's called the Saturday Adventure Group. And that group goes and does adventures in different, like we might swim down south or we might swim down north. And some of those swims can be really long. Like our weekday swims are only like, half a mile to 1 mile max, maybe 3/4 of a mile. But those weekend swims, especially in the summer, we can be training for something. We went and there's a swim in Seattle called the Fat Salmon. And so we did our own version of that and called it the Fat Beaver, and that's like 3 miles. Um, and so yeah, there's like varying degrees. And then the Sunday group is just like fun and play, and
Yeah.
there are folks who yeah, it's just like a really, really good, it's like a party. That's the best way to describe it. So there's a lot of
Right.
choice. I actually don't do Sunday and Saturday as much anymore.
Mm.
The weekday swims tend to be my normal, but that varies. It varies over the year. I mean, that's the thing about being a part of a community like this. What are we at? Probably now 5 years, maybe 4.5 years. Is your
Wow.
participation and what you're doing and how, like, it has to wax and wane, right? There are
Yeah.
times where I was like 21 days in a row, I'm going for it, right? I'm there every day, every swim. And then there are times where life has other challenges and that's not possible. And then it's like, I'm like, oh, I only did the Saturday swim. And that was my only swim I could do for the week. Because when you do these things for a long time, your life is always different.
Yeah. And I love that the group seems to kind of accommodate that, right? Like you've got all the different kinds, so you can pick and choose which things you resonate with. There are probably some people who don't really want to do the adventure swims or don't, or yeah, maybe Sunday, just the casual kind of bobbing around is their thing. How does the group kind of accommodate those coming in and out? Like, have you ever missed a whole month and then kind of come back in? And does it still feel the same? Or do people kind of like look at you funny because you've been missing so many? Or, how does that ebb and flow work?
The
Mhm.
Sunday swim is open to everyone, right? It's like
Yeah.
anybody who wants to be on the signal, we add to the signal. It's this very inclusive group. So I think the signal could be up to 300 people, right? And
Yeah.
people come and go. Like I probably haven't done a Sunday swim probably in 6 months. And sometimes when I
Mhm.
see the like folks who only swim on Sunday, they're like, "Oh, we missed you." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm swimming in the lake."
Right.
And I like that's that type of swim. It's very like, oh, if I showed up on this coming Sunday, they would welcome me with open arms. The weekday group is smaller and more protected, and I'm probably one of the people who are a protector of it.
Mhm.
I I think it's a group that like shares a lot with each other and is very vulnerable with each other, and so I've advocated for it being a group that isn't just open to everybody. And that doesn't mean we haven't added people. We have, but there's kind of some called for like how you add people. You kind of invite them and you do some work to make sure that they're comfortable, that they're being safe, that they integrate well with the group. As I said, that group shares a lot in messages, and so when you have someone who doesn't come, it becomes a little bit awkward, and I think as I'm thinking of, like, a particular situation, there was a woman who was a part of the group, and she swam with us for a long time, and then she really disappeared, and multiple of us reached out to her and, checked in, and for a lot of reasons, it became very clear she had no intention of coming back. She was seen out in the community and, didn't really respond in ways that gave a sense of like wanting to stay in relationship, but was
Yeah.
still on our group chat. And I really asked the group, like, hey, I'm going to reach out to her and ask if she still wants to be on our group chat. I share personal information about my life in this group chat. And so I reached out and I was like, hey, we love you, we miss you, we'd love you to come back at any point. How do you feel about me taking this off? And you can come back whenever you want. And she was very gracious about it. It hurt. It like I will say
Yeah.
created a lot of intensity in me. But I think that's like part of protecting that group, which is, as I said, much smaller and also like much more intimate. And then I will say,
Yeah.
for me personally, this year, I've gone through some pretty intense difficulties, and I did have to step away from the group for a period of time. And I'm the type of person who would probably just disappear. Like, it's kind of hard to share. And this group has built up so much like love and trust, and I didn't want them to be like, what has happened? And so I did message and say, like, this is what's happening. And I wanna be here, and I can't be here right now. And all of us in the group have had things that have been hard over the last few years, and so it's a group that's incredibly supportive. And, like, no one's getting kicked out of the group because they don't come for a few months, right? Like, that's the balance, right? You're all gonna go through things and have periods where you're not gonna be able to be as active, and I think the group really supports that. And then there are limits, right? There's also a need to keep a boundary and not be just, oh, if you come, you can be a part of this chat even if you never come. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. And I think for the listeners of this podcast, like I think one of the things that I've heard from a lot of people is like figuring out what kind of connection they want, what kind of engagement they want. And again, to go back to like, okay, maybe you want a casual community, where you kind of can have fun with them and you go to these Sunday swims and you just kind of chat with people and you're not going to chat with them probably outside of that Sunday connection. You're just going to kind of say, "Hey." But then you've built this close-knit group that sounds like you have a chat, you do these pillow talks, you're sharing details about your life and stuff like that. If you're open to it, talk a little bit about that one, what that brings to your life, having that kind of close-knit community, and then maybe a little bit about like, how was that built and what are some of the challenges that come with building that tightness?
Yeah. Oh man, I like didn't even know it was like something I needed. I'm in my 40s, early 40s. Um Happy to share my age, but I really haven't had that like group dynamic since my 20s. Like, I had a group of friends in my 20s, and then probably like many people, as folks like pair off and some have children, that group dynamic gets harder, at least it did for me. And I will say, I don't know if I was ever someone who was like, I love a group. Like, I'm very much a best friend person. I really love one-on-one
Uh,
relationships. And so I wasn't like, oh, I really want like a group of friends. So that was never the intention going into being a part of that of the group. But,
mhm.
something really amazing happens when you meet with people on a regular basis. You become close. You share your
Yeah.
lives. It's not like we started out having very depthful conversations, but when you see someone 3 or 4 times a week and you chit chat before while you're getting dressed and you chit chat after, you become really knowledgeable of each other's lives and you grow to care about each other. And in some ways, they know more about your life than some of your closer friend. Like, my best friend and I, we see each other once a week. And sometimes, they know more about my life than my best friend does, just because of
Yeah.
that ongoing, capacity of being in touch. And so depth grows over time, relationship grows over time. And then this particular group of people, I think open water swimmers, like, we're kind of nuts. Like, I mean, a certain type of human is drawn to open water swimming, or like cold water swimming too. Like, you're
Yeah.
kinda out there in a good way. Like, in a
Yeah.
really good way, you're kinda out there, and so this group is just a group that like is very authentic and shares and is also just really supportive of each other. I remember in the early days, like, oh, I'm sick, and one of the swimmers like dropped off soup at my door, right? And like the Sunday morning community did this too. They would have like birthdays where it's like we're celebrating January birthdays today. And so on that Sunday morning, people would bring like snacks and we would hang out after the swim and celebrate the January birthdays. Well, that continued to the lake group. So on your birthday, you kind of get a 5:45 a.m. birthday. And for my 40th, I had a really sad 40th. I was really sad. I
Oh,
was not the 40th I had wanted. And there was a bunch of disappointment there.
yeah.
And they got kind of like I didn't tell anybody explicitly, "Oh, it's my birthday or it's my 40th." But I think some of them knew, and so surprised me with a birthday at 5:45 AM. There's little gifts and cake and coffee, and it was raining and pouring, and the waves were massive, and it was just like just the birthday party I needed. Like, I
Well,
totally cried, just feeling
yeah.
that, like, love and, support and, like, acknowledgement and celebration, and as I said, that grows over time. Like, the first year, I would say, or even the first year or 2, if anything, I felt pretty like I did this thing with this group, but I didn't feel connected to them.
Yeah.
But you just keep showing up, and you keep sharing yourself, and you keep hearing from other people, and that depth of a relationship grows, and now the swimming is, like, 3rd. It's like
Yeah.
the community is like, the relationships and those people are so important that, like, being in nature and, like, being awed, like, having that starting your morning just being in nature, not, like, seeing nature, like, you are in nature, right? Nature
Yeah.
is surrounding you.
Literally enveloped by nature. Yeah.
Exactly, and then every now and then you get a little exercise.
Yep. So one of the things that we've talked about in a couple of other episodes is when there's this, thing that you're doing that you have in common with people, like, that you have this one connection at least with people, but you're not necessarily going into a group of people who are all very like you. So I'm curious in that building of the community, if you encountered some ideologies or people who were different than you, but you're still able to build community with them and kind of how you think about that.
You know, I think maybe it's a different experience with this particular group. I can't speak to the Sunday morning group. I think that group is much more diverse and obviously it's like 300 people and there's obviously regulars, but that group I think the age range is much more significant. I think the late group is um you know, they're all women. They're a good chunk of them are all in a particular age range, and then I would put us all at very values aligned. And in some ways, in this particular political climate, it's, like, really lovely to be
Yeah.
grieving together, I think there's actually a sense of the word I'm looking here, like, continuity in some sense that makes the lake group so close-knit.
Yeah.
But even within that, there is personality. So I talked a little bit about desiring to keep borders around the group. There are
Okay.
other members of the group. There's one particular person. I love her. When you see her, she is literally she is the embodiment of love projecting from her. Like when you stand in front of her, she literally looks like love is emanating from her. She's just
Wow.
very open and inclusive person, which she's amazing. And she wants to invite everybody,
Yeah.
invite everybody. And I am like, protect, protect. Like, you know, and there was a woman who I would say was more in like the protect category, and she actually chose not to be in our group anymore because it got
Mm.
too large. Like there was a point where it was a much smaller group. And
Yeah.
then as it started to morph from like 5 to 7 to 8 to 13, she was like, "This is actually not the group I'm looking for anymore."
Yeah.
And I probably fall more in the middle category of like, yes, be inclusive, but let's be really thoughtful about it. We have something really special here, and it deserves to be protected, but it also doesn't need like iron walls. Every year we probably add about one person, and like those ads have been so awesome and so wonderful. But because I think they were done with care, right? They
Yeah.
were done with care. And open water swimming does have safety issues. So we had someone who was added, and they actually ended up bringing a person who like didn't have a buoy, looked like they were unsafe in the water. And we
Mm.
are a group who sticks together and who we watch out for each other. We're not like, if you're like swimming behind, someone stays behind with you. We don't leave anybody out there. Other groups
Yeah.
do, but that is not us. And it was incredibly stressful. We had a few weeks where it was just like concern about this person who did not look safe in the water. And
Right.
so that's the type of thing. It's like, yes, inclusiveness. And then we kind of created a list of like, it's not rules, but like, if you're going to swim with us, you need a buoy. You can't swim without a buoy. And if you're
Yeah.
going to bring someone, you have to stay with them and make sure that they are safe and competent before they can come without you. Right.
Yeah.
And like, I think those things create nice containers, but as this wonderful person who emanates love, I think she would just invite the whole world. And I love, like, we need those people too, right?
Yes, for sure. I really appreciate that. I like that there's so much intention to it. One of the topics for this season or maybe next season is bringing some level of structure to these community things because you and I well know that in corporations, there's a whole lot of structure. Sometimes that structure can be very oppressive. But I think in our friendships and in our communities, we're sort of reluctant to say, okay, here's our box, or like, here's some rules, or we need to talk first about this before we actually go do it. There's something that feels very kind of stiff about that, but I actually think that's really important for getting the best experience out of something like this.
I have not read, I actually have it open right now because I'm supposed to be doing it for a school book club, The Art of the Gathering. But I think the idea is like we should be more intentional with our gatherings. And that is much easier to do in an organizational setting. And then when you get into your personal lives, there's, I think for those of us who are used to putting structure and creating intention around those spaces, there are no norms around that for
Yes.
personal gatherings. And I do it and I do it with a very light, I try to, I mean, they wouldn't say I do it with a light touch. I try to do it with a light touch.
Yeah.
And, I'm fighting for our group here. I want it to be a group that feels good for everybody. Um,
Yeah.
but there's no processes for that. There's no norms, right? And I think
Yeah.
if anything, it's just a little bit of the wild, wild west. And sometimes that works for a little while and then it stops working. And then people who are unhappy don't say anything. They just leave. And that's so sad,
Yeah.
right? That,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. This stuff takes some nurturing and some care. And sometimes that means weird process that you might not otherwise think would be helpful.
that's right.
There's one more thing that I want to dig in with you, and I know that you do some work with somatics and with how you bring your physical being into different kinds of spaces, and I'm curious if you have thoughts on the blend between a physical activity and a community building, and if that's meant anything to you to have those two things together.
Yeah, I mean, sure, I've thought about it and like what would it like to be in another group. I've recently been trying more book clubs.
Mm.
And I'm also in school communities because I have a school age kid. And I will say, I mean, in reflection of your question, I find it a lot harder to be connected to those folks. And as I said, maybe some of that is time. They don't have the 4 to 5 years now I have with this group that I've seen every day. But I think 100% right, like, moving our bodies together, I mean, any parent knows that it's easier to have a conversation with your kid when you're doing something together, right? Whether you be
Yeah.
walking together or doing a puzzle together. It's just there's less pressure, right? There can be moments of silence, um, And so, yeah, I mean, yes, I wouldn't say I've like reflected on it, but in this moment, I'm like, yeah, it's really wonderful to be in places, moving your body. And then I think from somatically, it is just so powerful. I'll kind of go back to like being engulfed by nature. I
Yeah.
cannot quite describe. It's like you're with community, moving your body, engulfed in nature and absolute awe. Like whether that awe is because the sunrise is coming up or whether that awe is because you're seeing the stars and the moon, or whether it's,
Mm.
I don't know, maybe this is like awe, maybe it's panic because it's
Huh.
42 degrees and the
Right.
waves are hitting your face.
Yeah.
It's freezing and there's this shock to your nervous system. I don't know anything else that makes me feel as alive as doing this with these people. I mean, we'll talk about like, you wake up and you're like crusty, you're tired and you're cranky. There's like layers of crank, like
Yes.
all over your skin and your body. And I don't know anything else that takes those layers off in a really, I don't have to force them off. I'm not like pushing them off and trying not to be cranky, but they fall away. There has never been a single swim where I get out there and I leave and I'm like, "Oh, I wish I hadn't done that." Like, I don't think that has ever happened in 5 years.
Wow. Yeah, that's enormous. It's a perfect segue, I think, into my last question, which is going to be I think a lot of folks listening might be experiencing some that crustiness that you talk about when you wake up, or maybe it's carrying through their day, or they're feeling like it's really hard, to motivate to go out. If you were just to talk to someone who's trying to motivate to participate in something, what advice might you give them?
Good question. I don't know if this is a good answer. I'm just gonna put that this is what like comes out, but I'm gonna assess whether I actually believe what I'm about to say here. But I think my answer
Perfect.
is like what comes easy, right? What
Mm.
feels possible. For example, like if the big group just feels really overwhelming, don't try to go to the big group. Like try to find that one person who will go do it with you. I kind of left this part out of this story, but I knew I wanted to swim in the lake. And so I found someone on Facebook to swim with, and she left me. Like she was out of there.
Hmm.
And as I said, I kind of like had a panic attack covered by milfoil.
Yeah.
Got out of at a dock, some random dock. I couldn't go any further. And I was like,
Yeah.
I need someone who is going to stay with me. Like that is what I
Yeah.
to do this. I need if I'm going to swim in the lake, it's really convenient for me. It's close to my house. I need somebody to stay with me. I cannot do
Yeah.
this like where they're going to be 30, 40, 100 yards away. Like I need them right next to me to make this happen. And so, yes, there's a little bit of like there's the push through, but there's also like, what do I need to be successful? Oh, I need this to be a small group. Oh, I need someone who's going to stay with me through this. Oh, I actually need to take a few classes. Like we've had many people who've wanted to join us who've actually gone and taken a few swim classes before they joined us.
Yeah.
Um, it's like, yeah, what do you need to feel good about doing that? And that's very personal. And I think when you can support yourself in those needs rather than deny them, it makes it more possible.
Mm. Yeah, that's lovely. That's a great answer. Because it is a natural tendency, right? You'll be like, "Oh, I wish I had 200 friends that I could just go to and talk to whenever," and you're kind of like, "That sounds so nice," and then you, like, look at yourself and you're like, "I don't actually 1, that's not the kind of connection that I want, and 2, I might have a panic attack just by being around 200 people," or whatever it is, like, I've definitely experienced those kinds of things. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. Totally.
Awesome. Terry, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. This has been so fun to hear about this journey that you've been on, and yeah, thanks for sharing it with us.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm really glad I got to just, I don't know, have a sense of gratitude for this group. I do feel so much gratitude for what has developed. I never like planned it out. And it has added so much to my life. So it was lovely to get to reflect on that.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you, thank you. And for those of you listening, thank you so much for tuning in and for listening and hearing about Terri's story. We would love to hear your comments wherever you are listening. If you have questions for Terri about the group or the experience, please feel free to put those questions in. And otherwise, we will see you next time. Thanks so much again.